all in my feelings. Just might buy a plane to bring all of these women. Shipping the same, but I'm on a mission, yeah. Wait, take, you can't lay no. Pray. Confessions, got in the booth, now I'm up now. Two to the break, no fuck now. Pulling up with a set better done now.
Go down and come alive. They keep a minimal high. I keep the whole city milli rocking off X's. High mileage popping. This one for my exes.
Since the day you saved my soul, you've been proving yourself to me, Lord.
Box on my braids, you know they been flipping. Dominic Connor, so she never listen. 800 grand, my bullets ain't missing. Yellow bit roll, you know I got ambition. Ice on my veins, got all of these wishes. All in my brain, I'm all in my feelings. You might buy a plane to bring all of these women. Shipping the same, but I'm on a mission, yeah. Wait, take, you can't lay no. Pray. Confessions, got in the booth, now I'm up now. Two to the brain, give a fuck now. Pulling up with a set better done now. Molly and his thinking, nah. Molly and his safe and what's nah. Give me all the way, Up in the club, throw it in the air. Said they want Jason the mall, yeah. Overseas like a foreign affair. Drippin' from Paris, that's what I wear. Numbers they up, gotta get me there. 300K, we up in the clear. Posted up in the Benz, I got that bass in the bag. I been up counting the racks, fucking the man, I'm in the net and down. Had to go rolling the rap. You talking all that shit I never had. Down Ocean Drive, said she open mine, so her legs I open wide.
Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight bottom. We just on a mission, but the mission getting harder. She know how to talk, she tryna lock it, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step back, James Harden. Find the words before we air it out, now we crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight, no talking. You ain't rockin' with the steps,
Kick back, little flame. Know it's on the same, niggas told me on the flame. 25 on my gut, kick back, little flame. Niggas moving too low key, so my youngins, this a damn shame. We been moving too low key, hit the hood I had to maintain.
Yeah, I know I was just taking a dump on Universal Audio last month. But listen, you have to understand, that was a rather nuanced criticism, specifically aimed at their business practices, not the quality of the product they deliver. And Universal Audio delivers some of the highest quality plugins in the game. So, let's go ahead and get into it, man. Alright, so we've got another throwaway project loaded up here, relatively straightforward and simple. At the surface, we have a handful of main vocals, handful of background vocals, and a bunch of automation. So I've got 3 unique vocal chains loaded up in Studio Rack instances here. These are just the basic Studio Rack presets that I'll have available on my Patreon under the $1 tier. If you're on there already, you've seen one of these chains. It's been up there for about a month now. I'm just getting around to making the video for this. And then after that, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper and break down what's going on under the hood in this project for those of you that yearn for the beyond, the greater beyond of mixing. Alright, so first vocal, J main 1. Bonus points if you can guess who J is. So I've got some other stuff going on outside of Studio Rack. Nothing really worth noting, nothing worth mentioning, nothing particularly different from the other 50 vocal chains I've dropped already. But I got some auto-tune, a de-esser, Antrasol, if you know, you know. And then an instance of virtual mix rack because this didn't have my printed effects. Don't really get too fixated on what's happening outside of Studio Rack. The main meat and potatoes of this vocal chain is going to be in the instance of Studio Rack. You can hear if I toggle it on and off.
What's on the same, niggas told me on the flame. 45 on my gut, kick back, little flame. Niggas moving too low key, some youngins, this a damn shame. We been moving too low key, the hood I had to maintain.
That's where the tone's coming from. That's what's doing the most, right? To the vocal. So let's take a look inside, see what we've got here. And as you can see, it's only 4 plugins. Nothing that crazy, right? I'm a relatively simple man, right? Simple things, simple decisions. So the first thing we've got here is the Manly Vox Box channel strip. Brand new, fresh off the line plugin from Universal Audio. And one of my personal favorite pieces of hardware to use, specifically on vocals. I can't express how glad I am that Universal Audio decided to bring this plugin to native, because there's not a chance in heaven above or hell below that I'm ever going to buy a satellite Airshark card. Not doing too much. We have obviously some preamp coloration, just a smidgen of compression, relatively conservative settings. The de-esser is bypassed, and there is a little bit of EQ, I see. So there's a mid-dip around 700 hertz, and there's a high shelf boost, dB or 2, at about 10,000 hertz. Next, there is an 1176 low noise. You guys know me, this wouldn't be a Jason Paris video without an 1176 scattered somewhere in it. This has slightly more aggressive settings than the previous compressor, so this is getting about 5 dB of compression, averaging through the performance, and it has a significantly slower release than the first compressor, so a lot more of the character of the compressor is becoming imprinted on the vocals, and the level is becoming a lot more consistent. Hitsville EQ, literally doing nothing other than a high shelf boost at 12.5K. What is this, 3.5 dB, 4 dB? That's fairly standard for me. And last is the Oxide tape recorder. Some people opt to put tape saturation at the front of every chain. Sometimes I do, but for a whole slew of reasons that are too complicated to really explain here, briefly, I have mine here at the end. It's just one of the presets with some slight tweaks that I made. And that's the first chain, so let's hop onto the second Studio Rack preset. So the first plugin on this chain is the Studer A800 tape machine. It's just tape saturation. I really hope I don't need to explain that. Then there's a Neve 1073, the preamp of choice within the genre of rap. There's also a slight EQ maneuver on it, a little bit of a dip at 3.2 kilohertz, and then once again a little bit of a high shelf boost. Next there's another 1176, but this one's going to be the Revision AE, just has a slightly different tone than the Revision LN, which has a slightly different tone from the Revision A, which has a slightly different tone from the Revision D, Revision E, Revision F. 1176, you know how it goes. Now this one, the way it's set, is working a little bit faster than the LN on the last chain, but it's about the same amount of compression, about 5 dB average compression through the performance. Next is the 176 compressor. This is relatively new to the Spark bundle, but not a new Universal Audio plugin. It's been around for a very long time. This is actually one of the first compressors, I believe, that was purpose-built, purpose-designed for studio use. And I think technically this falls under the category of very mu compressor. I'm not 100% sure. Someone please fact check me if I'm wrong, if you know the answer. But I believe, technically speaking, this would be categorized as a very mu compressor. Anyways, great tone, a lot of control. You guys know I'm all about that serial compression. And I've got this as well, getting an average of about 5 decibels of compression throughout the performance. And boom, last but not least, once again, the culprit, Hitsville EQ. This time there's a 5 dB shelf boost, 12.5K as opposed to 3 dB. Just what I opted for, it worked for this song. And yeah, those are the 2 vocal chains for my voice. Now onto the other artist on this track. He goes by the name of E.Arden, E.Ardon. I'll put his Spotify down below. I definitely recommend you check out his stuff. He's way more talented than me vocally. But if you watch my videos, then you've heard him before. Without a doubt, he's been scattered through plenty of my projects throughout the years, even if you aren't aware of it. So let's look at what I got going on his vocal. Now, there are no Universal Audio plugins on his vocal. I just wanted to, it's a practice project, so I wanted to, try some stuff out. So first is Autotune. As always, have a de-esser and an instance of virtual mix rack, just running the effects that I print, my tracking effects. You guys should already know all this. Interesting note here though, I have the RCA44BX microphone selected here on his vocals. Normally, I'm just a C800 guy, maybe a UAD7, but I don't know, this had a very interesting character and I think it worked perfectly, not only for his voice, but for this track. Next is probably the most popular, definitely the most popular plugin as of the date of this video. Kazrog's new Avalon 747 emulation. Nothing really to it, man. A couple dB of compression cued in and a little high shelf boost, a couple EQ moves. Next is a bit of a hidden gem, just a not really much talked about plugin. Don't know why Kush Audio doesn't get the notoriety that they deserve. You know, they make some of the best plugins, and their plugins are just plugin versions of the hardware they also make, which is fantastic. But we have the AR1 loaded up here. Just a couple more dB of compression, relatively fast release setting, really fast release setting actually. And the parallel knob is not 100%, it's not 100% wet, right? We have it dialed back to 70%. Next, the Lindell 50 channel, one of my personal favorite channel strips. Only using the EQ, guess what it's for? Once again, high shelf post-compression at about 5-6 dB. And last is an instance of auto-tune effects. This is like a bridge section on the song. It's super vibey, super spaced out, and I have a doubler and some distortion and filtering effects here in this instance. So yeah, those are the vocal chains. Now, there's also 2 extra stacks here over E. Arden's part. There's literally nothing interesting about these. Auto-tune, de-esser, I have them panned left and right, and then just the basic the first vocal preset that I ever dropped, right? My virtual mix track vocal chain, I just have that running through it. So let's look over here at the vocal bus. So the first thing, there are 2 instances of Nebula, Acustica Nebula. The first one is L Enhancer. EL Enhancer is just a harmonic exciter, sizzle, sprinkle, top end, shine, sheen type joint. And then there is the modern flagship console group bus channel loaded in the second instance. Next is Ozone Pro Vintage Tape. Not doing anything crazy, just some tape saturation, affecting everything together as a whole. It's responsible, I guess you could say glue, but it's not really glue what it's doing, but it's affecting everything globally, vocal-wise. Then Eosis de-esser, my personal favorite de-esser. I'm just taming some of the harshness. Mixing too bright is one of the bad habits that I've developed over time, and I'm trying to get rid of right now. But for now, that's just how I band-aid it. Just Eosis on the master bus. I'm rolling with the Fairchild 670 by Universal Audio as the vocal bus compressor. Somewhat of a rare occurrence for me. I'm not a huge fan of the Fairchild on my vocal master bus. Not that I'm not a huge fan, I just don't do it very often in hip-hop. But it worked perfectly on this song. And then after that is the FabFilter Pro L. So I have a limiter because this beat, it's obviously like it's a 2-bus, just 2-track. So it has effects on it. It's already pre-limited, and getting the vocals to mesh well with it was difficult off the rips keys. So I decided to apply some limiting before they get summed. And then we have the Mag EQ2. Not doing anything drastic, just a 2 dB boost on the airband. So that is the vocal chains, but you can hear by itself, it's not all too interesting.
That ball looking fitted, crew official, straight ballin'. We just on a mission, but the mission getting harder. She knew how to talk, tryna lock in, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step back, James Harden. Found the words before we air it out without crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight, no talking. You ain't rockin' with the step hard.
Kick back, little flame. Know I sound the same, niggas told me I'm the flame. Running vibe on my gut, kick back, little flame. Niggas moving too low key, some of youngins, it's a damn shame. We been moving too low key, hit the hood I had to maintain. Box on my braids, they been flipping. Dominicana, so she never listen. 800 grand, my bullets ain't missing. Yellow brick road, I got ambition. Ice on my veins, got all of these riches. All in my brain, I'm all in my feelings. So might buy a plane to bring all of these women. Shipping the same, but I'm on a mission, yeah. Wait, take. You can't lay nowhere. Pray. Confession.
So a lot of the dynamics of this vocal are coming from automation moves to the send effects. So let's go ahead and go over those real quick. So as you can see here, these are pretty simple as well. I've got 2 plates, I've got a quarter delay and a half delay, a New York style parallel channel for the vocals, and a micro pitch shift, a channel with the micro pitch shift effect on it. The first plate I have here is the Lexicon PCM Native medium plate for dark. And I have Verb Suite Classic set to the Lexicon 480 A plate preset. So these are probably my 2 favorite and most used reverb plugins right now, because they just check all the boxes. So from my current understanding of how this works, the Lexicon PCM Native plugins are just like the PCM 96. Like it's the same algorithms, the same code being written by the same person. So like sonically, yeah, the gear, the people that get horny for gear still prefer the hardware, but it's the same thing. Bro, it's the same thing. It's the PCM, so I can't not use it, right? Yes, the GUI is a bit dated, but you have to understand, this plugin came out in 2009. 2009, right? So when I was 9 years old. You know what else came out in 2009? This phone. You remember these? So, all things considered, it's excusable. In Verb Suite Classics, it really doesn't need any introduction. Anything by Liquid Sonics is just gonna be on another level. So from what I understand, Verb Suite Classics is convolution, but also algorithmic. So they kind of nail everything they need to with emulating these digital hardware reverbs. You have to understand, reverb is classified as a linear time variant system. So when using a convolution reverb, it's great for spaces. Well, it's pretty good for spaces. Well, spaces can still be time variant, but it's really good for spaces for the most part. But you're limited by design of convolution to a linear time invariant system. So for emulating time variant devices, such as a reverb that has a modulated tail, this is not the best tool for the job. You're not actually getting as close as you can to the hardware. Liquid Sonics takes this a step further with their proprietary Fusion IR technology. They have algorithmic processes embedded in the reverb afterwards, so it becomes a truly time invariant complete system. Well, I think that's how it works. I don't know, I'm not a DSP guy, but the moral of the story is that Liquid Sonic stuff is just on another level. They're just better. Alright, but yeah, it's enough nerding out for this segment, so let's move on. So I have a quarter delay and a half delay, like I said earlier. So I have two instances loaded here of the PSP emulation of the Lexicon PCM42. Yeah, I know, another Lexicon. Who would have thought I'd be using Lexicon units for reverb and delay? How crazy. But yeah, so I've got two set here, feedback to taste. This is slowly becoming my main workhorse delay. I just really like that it has the hold function, the repeat knob just there, easy to click and automate. Just makes my life a lot easier when I'm trying to do more advanced effects. But yeah, quarter delay, half delay. So on this quarter delay, I have the H3000. Ta-da! Who would have thought you'd be seeing an H3000 in this too? So I have an H2000 on micro pitch, of course, and then there's also an instance of Valhalla Room, both set to pretty conservative mix settings, so that makes the delay go from sounding like this.
Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight ball. We start a mission
to this.
Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight ball. We start a mission, but the mission getting harder. She know how to talk.
How you want your delays to sound is going to be up to you and your song. But for this track, with these vocals, the way with the automation moves I have, and interacting with the other sends, this works perfectly for this track. So I have these on just to give the quarter delay a little bit more space. So on the half note delay, the first thing I have is the Air Music Tech Parametric EQ, really just using the high cut filter. And then after that is the H2000 again and Valhalla Room. I believe they're set to the same settings as on the quarter note delay, but their mixes are both higher. So the mix on the H2000 delay is higher, so there's more delay on your delay. It's weird to think about, but it's not as noticeable because it's a half note delay. So the period of the cycle is twice as long as the quarter note delay, so you don't notice it as much. But yeah, so that makes the half note delay go from this.
The top trying to lock it, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step
to this.
Back James Harden. Found the ones who fought, we air it out, I'm crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight.
Now on my parallel vocal channel, you know I normally rock the Shep's pull tech trick, so of course I have that set up here at the top of it, but I have a few more additions on this project that I felt were needed. So the first thing on this channel after the Shep's pull tech trick is an instance of RDSer. I just have it set here so we're not building up too much of in the pain range for what's going to be happening next. Now after this, there's an instance of Pulsar P42 Climax. Now, full disclosure, so I've never read the manual for this plugin or looked at the product page, so I don't actually know what it what it does, what it's supposed to be doing. Now it seems to me to be doing some kind of preamp saturation, like you turn the knob and then you get more color from the unit. It seems like a preamp, and it also looks and sounds kind of like a Neve. So I think it's just supposed to be like some Neve-inspired preamp. Not 100% sure what it is. It's clearly just saturation plugin, but I'm using this afterwards, driving it with a relatively moderate amount of gain, just to hotten up the signal. So we've got kilohertz. We have kilohertz. Kilohertz gain here. After, don't ask me why I do stuff like that. I'm just kind of like autistic about the gain structure of like channels. So sometimes I just do weird stuff like that. Even though the P42 Climax has 12 more dB left to drop the signal on the output stage. And then of course we've got the micro pitch shift here at the end. Nothing special, just the Eventide H3000 plugin set to the micro pitch shift setting, 100% white. So yeah, that's how I'm rocking. That's what I got set up here on the Sens. Nothing, out of the ordinary. A couple cool effects going on. If my memory serves me correctly, I do believe some of these are automated. So I know for a fact there's a delay hold at one point in the song. So that delay, I automate the hold button. And then I believe on the air parametric EQ, on the half note delay, there is automation of the filter cutoff. So you get the, the filter cutoff, the mask on, mask off kind of effect on the delay at certain points in the song. I think, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. Let's just go ahead and jump in. Let's just look at the automation I have here set up. So I'll just go ahead and cue show all automation. Okay, yeah, so no, that last 30 seconds was just BS. So I've just got regular automation going to the sends from the individual vocals. So let's go ahead and just take a look here at E Arden. So you can see I have automation going to play 2, delay 1/4, delay 1/2, and micro pitch shift. So I'm gonna play this vocal with soloed with each of these by themselves, so you can hear how the automation sounds like individually for each of these effects. And then you should have a better idea, I think you should have a better understanding of how these, kind of work together and make the grand picture of the very dynamic vocal performance.
Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight ballin'. We just on a mission, but the mission getting harder. She knew how to talk, tryna lock in, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step back, James Harden. Found the ones before we air it out, I'm crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight, no talking. You ain't rockin' with the step Harden. Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight ballin'. We just on a mission, but the mission getting harder. She knew how to talk, tryna lock in, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step back, James Harden. Found the ones before we air it out, I'm crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight, no talking. You ain't rockin' with the step Harden. Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight ballin'. We just on a mission, but the mission getting harder. She knew how to talk, tryna lock in, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step back, James Harden. Found the ones before we air it out, I'm crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight, no talking. You ain't rockin' with the step Harden. Step out looking fitty, crew official, straight ballin'. We just on a mission, but the mission getting harder. She knew how to talk, tryna lock in, I'm ballin'. She ain't with the crew, I step back, James Harden. Found the ones before we air it out, I'm crawling. Got $250,000 off the speed and I'm ballin'. Anytime we pull up, it's on sight, no talking. You ain't rockin' with the step Harden.
So yeah, it's pretty much how the automation works on this project. Now you guys know how much I preach about automation. It's really what mixing is about, in the sense that through automation, you're crafting the emotional experience, right? The emotional journey through the song that a listener is going to take. So it's where your artistic imprint, right? It's where you have the most opportunity and responsibility to leave your artistic impression on the song. It's your job as a mixing engineer to do that. And you can hear it. I mean, even on a simple song like this, right, with just like 3 or 4 vocal tracks, if I just have it completely static with the effects, it just doesn't have the same energy and life, right? This is like where the life comes from in this, is the automation moves that I choose to make. So that's why I believe automation is so important and why it's so separational from amateur to professional engineers. And it's just something that seems to go over a lot of people's head at the beginner and intermediate levels. And like even me, so like when I used to work in FL Studio, like I found I would avoid or just try to work around automation so much because at the time the system was so bad. I mean, I think it's still pretty bad. I don't know. I don't mix in FL Studio anymore, mainly for this reason, a few other reasons too. But mainly I had to get away because working with automation was such a nightmare and just a headache. Anytime I had to automate anything, it's just not impossible, but just so unreasonably and unnecessarily filled with work and difficulty to do something as simple as like automating a modulation wheel. Okay, I know I'm ranting, but boys, if you made it this far through the video, if you made it 20 minutes in and you don't take anything else from me, please automate your tracks. Automate your effects, automate everything. Your panning, your volume, your effects, your sends, the stereo width of the master bus, like just everything you reasonably can, right? Not everything, but automate everything you reasonably can. It will take your mixes to another level. But let's move on. So I'm not gonna play the solo automation on my vocals. I think it's a waste of time. I think you get the idea of what it's doing. So you can just look here and see what I have going on. I have the different automation moves I'm making. Now there is automation for the volume on mine. So some parts where the micro pitch shift is getting automated to a really loud volume, it's just becoming too loud. So I'll have to automate the volume of the entire track back down. So when the micro pitch shift effect, you're just doubling the vocal twice, essentially, right? You're just making 2 copies of it. So it doesn't get 3 times as loud, but it gets a lot louder. This is also an acutely large problem for me because I mix like through a compressor on the mix bus and on the vocal bus. So if it's coming in 10 dB louder, right? If it's triggering 7 more dB of compression on the vocal master bus, like that's not what I want. I don't want a 7 dB of dynamic range just like from one word to the next word type thing. It's not what I'm trying to have. So yeah, I have to take care of that here. So I think that's pretty much everything in the project. I guess there's still my master bus, but I'm not going to show that here on YouTube today. It's not too much different from chains in the past, but there are some noticeable differences on it, and I'm gonna decide to protect my VIP patrons for once. Y'all already had that for like a month. But yeah, if you don't know where to find me, I'll throw it up one more time on the video if you want to get this template or just the vocal presets. They're both available under different tiers on my Patreon, so you can check that out. If you want to hire me as a mixing engineer, it's just gotten a little bit easier. I recently got on Fiverr, so you can check me out on there. If you want to work together, shoot me a message. We can get to talking. I am the one and only Don Paris, and I'm out of here.